Today we're going to unpack the really detailed and often difficult process of re-examining a suspicious death. But what happens when the very people who are supposed to find the truth might actually be the ones hiding it? Let's get into how an official inquiry can totally transform into a murder investigation. You know, this quote from the lead investigator, Nomsa Masuku, it really says it all. This isn't just about how tough the case was. It's about the need for everyone to see how the system is supposed to work, especially when it's put to the ultimate test. So this really is the big question, isn't it? What does it actually take to go from a standard official inquiry into a cause of death to a full-blown murder investigation? Let's break down exactly how it happens. Okay, so our story starts not with a murder, but with something called an inquest, filed under the Duduza docket. And believe me, right from the very beginning, there were signs that something was just not right. So first things first, let's be super clear on what an inquest actually is. Basically, it's a legal file the state opens when a death seems unnatural, but there's no obvious suspect. The whole point is just to figure out how someone died, not necessarily who was responsible. So this case file gets opened back in April of 2022 in Duduza, and the initial report was incredibly simple. A man's body was found in a dam. On the surface, it was just treated as a tragic but pretty straightforward discovery. But, and this is a huge but, tucked away inside that original police file were two details that should have immediately set off alarm bells. First, there was a witness statement, taken by the police themselves, by the way, that said officers had been at the man's house right before he went missing. And second, the body had visible injuries. There was blood around the head. And this is exactly the point Investigator Masuku makes. When there are clear signs of injury like that, calling it a simple inquest was, as she puts it, just plain wrong from the get-go. Because of those red flags, the case eventually makes its way to the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, or IPID. But here's the thing, they can't just swoop in and take over. They have to start with a really careful preliminary probe. So who is IPID? Well, think of them as the official civilian watchdog for the police in South Africa. Their entire job is to investigate serious complaints against police officers. Essentially, they're the ones who police the police. Now, IPID has to follow a very strict process. They can't just act on a hunch. It all starts with a complaint, which then leads them to track down the original police file. They go through that file with a fine-tooth comb, looking for anything that points to police involvement. And then, this is the most important step, they have to go out and find their own independent evidence to back it up. And that right there is the key. Before this could become a full-on IPID investigation, they had to prove without a doubt that police officers were involved. Until they could do that, their hands were basically tied. And this brings us to that tipping point, that exact moment when a preliminary look becomes a real investigation. And it all came down to two critical pieces of evidence. The first piece was that witness statement we mentioned before. And the irony here is just staggering. The initial piece of evidence that pointed the finger at police was sitting right there in the police's own file the whole time. So, that witness statement was a massive lead, but Investigator Masuku knew she needed something solid, something scientific. Her main goal, as she says here, was to get hard proof that this death wasn't an accident and it wasn't natural. And that's what led her to the second game-changing piece of evidence, the official postmortem report. This was the document that would give her the objective, scientific answers she was looking for. And that report was absolutely conclusive. The cause of death? A head injury from blunt force trauma. So this wasn't a drowning, it wasn't natural causes, this was a violent death, period. With that confirmation in hand, everything changed. The whole foundation of the case shifted, and it had to be rebuilt from the ground up, moving from a simple inquest to a full-blown murder investigation. I mean, just look at this timeline. It lays it all out. See how fast things moved? In April, it's an inquest. 1 month later, in May, that post-mortem report comes in and flips the whole thing on its head. And then, it's officially re-registered under a brand new case number in BRACPAN as a murder investigation. And this right here is why that reclassification is so important. An inquest asks, how did they die? But a murder investigation asks, who did this? The whole focus changes. You're no longer just determining a cause, you're actively looking for a killer to prosecute. The resources, the urgency, everything is different.
So it was that 1-2 punch, the witness statement pointing to the police and the postmortem confirming a violent death, that gave IPID the undeniable authority it needed to take complete control of this case.
But, just getting to this point really exposed a lot of deeper systemic problems. The Brockpan case is a perfect example of the kinds of roadblocks that oversight bodies like IPI run into all the time.
And these challenges are huge. It all starts with the police service not even reporting the death to IPID, which they are legally required to do. That one failure causes a domino effect. Crucial time is lost. IPID can't get to the crime scene. Evidence gets contaminated or lost. Witnesses are put at risk. And investigators face a wall of non-cooperation.
Investigator Masuku's words here are just chilling. She says a delay of just 2 days is already too late. The scene is compromised, evidence starts to vanish, and the investigation becomes so much harder, which is exactly what happened here.
And that really leaves us with this final, critical question. The whole system we've just talked about is designed to answer it. When the people meant to protect us are the ones under suspicion, the word of an independent, methodical, and relentless oversight body isn't just important, it's absolutely essential for justice itself.